let's kick off here. And this is kind of a special edition Boring AI show, which we weren't planning on, hence why it was kind of a last minute edition. But man, what a perfect allegory for artificial intelligence, this whole Wonka experience story. So Tally, first off, thanks for joining me today, Tally. Always a pleasure. And today we are opening it up. So if you have questions, chime in. So if you look at the LinkedIn audio, you can raise up your hand and request to speak, and then we'll go through your questions there. All we ask is everybody keep it one topic and keep it concise. Let Tally and I wander, keep questions concise. So let's start. Tally, what is this Wonka experience thing that has captured our attention today?
Absolutely. So essentially there was this Willy Wonka experience in Glasgow, and it turned into this viral sensation because parents, they paid, I think it was about 50 USD for a ticket for them or their children to go to an event which promised, surprises at every turn and advertised this Willy Wonka experience, the Willy Wonka chocolate factory, leveraging AI images. And it really caught a lot of folks' eyes. They purchased these tickets, brought their kids there. And then if you look at some of the images of the actual Willy Wonka experience, it's kind of sad, if I'm being honest. It's there's some really interesting pieces of art or sculptures, and then it kind of has like a black fabric or fabric backsplash. It's kind of sparse. There's just like these plain concrete floors, and it's in like a warehouse, it looks like. They had actors there that were instructed they were kind of actually given scripts that felt AI generated. They were like, this wording felt a little off. And they didn't even have chocolate to give out. They had like kind of sad, like half cups of lemonade and like a handful of jelly beans to give out. And folks were kind of disappointed. Unfortunately, the actors tried to make the most of the experience, but it was definitely the actual experience didn't align with the expectation of what they thought they were getting based on these AI generated images.
Yeah, and this is one of the things Tally and I were talking about beforehand. I found it fascinating because as soon as I saw the website, and again, because we're working in AI all day, every day, as soon as I saw the website, I'm like, these are AI generated images. That is not what it's going to look like. And so when, talk about expectation setting, because one of the things in the BBC article I was reading about this, they put the AI image beside the actual event image. And it's like, yeah, they don't match. Well, of course they don't match. This was an AI image, so.
Absolutely. It is interesting, though, because I know for me, when I see, especially cartoon digital images, a lot of times I think, oh, wow, they had a digital artist come in and create this. So there must be some sort of funding and level of effort that went into that. And obviously with AI, that's not always the case. I think that assumption, even if you don't think it's going to be this cartoon world, you still think that there's some level of effort that they put in before that maybe they didn't, leveraging AI, which is really interesting.
Yeah. So the parallel here is, well, how do you avoid this in your AI solutions? Because literally just the other day I was at lunch with a client, and they were expressing how, one of their concerns was their executive team really sees AI as this magical cream that can be put on any business problem, and it just solves it. It just puts an AI on that and it works. And I know, as I've talked to other people, that is a mindset. That's a common mindset that people have is, can't you just like AI that?
Right.
And, man, that's tough because, well, what's the problem you're actually solving and what's the outcome you're trying to achieve? And so this misalignment of expectations is a very important and common theme in AI solutions. And so Tally and I want to give you some tools today to not have your AI solution be the next Wonka experience. So
agreed.
Tally, take it away.
Yeah, no, I think AI is, obviously it is not magic. It is an exciting tool. And I really do appreciate that it is making folks think about ways that things could be better. I think sometimes we get stuck in the status quo. And when there's a new tool that comes out, you're like, ooh, could all these different factors be fixed? And I think it's a great idea to continuously analyze, what are current problems that we're seeing, like you said. The difference is AI might not always be the solution that you're thinking it is. There's a lot of other tools in your tool belt that you could use to, streamline certain practices, to make things more efficient, to help employees have a better work experience. Not always AI. However, there are specific AI use cases that I'd love to touch on today and hear your thoughts on, Tim, that I was kind of thinking about this week. So I went to a AI facilitator workshop, and it was essentially how you can use AI to facilitate anything from meetings to workshops to brainstorming sessions, you name it. We even talked about how you could use AI to help facilitate dinner parties, which I thought was really interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Can you cook for you too? And just all the cooking? Can you just do all the cooking for me?
Hey, you never know. But well, it was funny. And they were talking about, especially for like a full day workshop, one of the questions they asked the chatbot was, what's a meal that we could serve that wouldn't have people have like that post-lunch slump? And I thought that was like a funny, interesting question. But yeah, a lot of the use cases were around content generation at this time. So the facilitator of this workshop, he created a few different GPTs, leveraging years and years of his past notes and agendas and workshops that he's done, and essentially put that into one GPT. So that way you could pick his brain essentially, or pick his, his area of expertise to come up with an agenda for a specific, meeting, or, maybe if there's a recommendation around, what exercise to use to get a certain outcome from a brainstorming session. And so he really recommended using AI to help kind of co-create and even be a brainstorm challenger, but definitely not to replace a user group. Whenever we're making any sort of solution, those users need to be present in some way to make sure we are, properly meeting the needs of the humans. I think when we think an AI bot can take over or replicate a certain demographic, that's where things obviously can get really, really sticky. We still need the human involved there.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one thing, just as a definition for anyone listening who isn't familiar, a GPT is basically a chatbot that is trained on, well, not trained. This is the kind of gotcha on this. So think of it like ChatGPT that is augmented with specific data, that it uses that data to create answers. So for instance, you could use this in Tally's example, the GPT was augmented with information about this person's like previous agendas, previous meeting notes. And so when you ask the GPT system, like, hey, can you tell me, plan an agenda for this? That system will look at all the previous data that you provided it as it's building its answer. So this is a way to create GPTs or chat GPT type interfaces that are specially tuned to some of your data. Now, the reason we don't want to say trained, because that has a specific meaning in the world of AI. And that means that data was put into the training data set of the system. That's not how this works. So you'll probably hear it as retrieval augmented generation system, or RAG system. Those are very popular right now. So a GPT, another way to think of it is like an app for the chat GPT world. So, and they have tons of them for all kinds of stuff. They have meeting agendas. They have GPTs for connecting into workflow systems, GPTs for documenting software. You've got all kinds of GPTs. If you can think of something that needs to be done, there's probably a GPT for that already. So,
yeah,
very cool.
No, I think that's a good call out. And I think with the examples I just listed, to connect it back to the theme here of this Wonka analogy, I think even when we implement or offer these kind of solutions to our organization or, a certain demographic, it's really, really critical to make sure we're setting expectations properly as we're doing that. Making sure they recognize, yes, this has all this person's notes, but that doesn't mean that every single time you're going to get out an agenda that's perfect, what you're looking for. There's a level of prompt engineering that's going to be needed. And even with that, there's potential for hallucinations or, mistakes in the system. That's kind of part of the AI journey, but it doesn't mean that there's not benefits. It just means that the output really needs to be reviewed by humans and fact checked and, ensure that is actually a valuable output that you then want to use going forward.
Yeah, agreed. And that's also where, as we think about at Mind Over Machines, we often say to people like, here is your generative AI tools. And oh, by the way, you are accountable for anything that the system creates. And so even our internal tool, Katie, there's a line at the end of every message Katie outputs that says, something along the lines of like, AI data could be false. So really setting that expectation, not only up front, but continually reinforcing it, and I think that's where, people get really turned off by some AI solutions where they have an idea of how it should work or what it should be able to do. Great example is math. We were working with a client to implement their own ChatGPT interface. And one of the questions that came up was, can it do math? And the answer back is, well, what kind of math? And that caused a pause in this conversation of like, well, what kind of math? Like, what do you mean, what kind of math? Well, is it just addition and subtraction? Are we getting into advanced algebra, geometry, trigonometry, financial calculations? Like, these things are very different. And so, your AI capability could vary greatly on its accuracy based on what kind of mathematics you're trying to do, and what kind of data you're working with. So, again, you have to know these things and you have to set those expectations because, again, you watch the news and it's like, AI is going to take all these jobs. By the way, it can't do simple addition and subtraction.
Right. No, absolutely.
I think some jobs are going to be okay if you can't do that. But then you have other AI capabilities like these assistant algorithms with code interpreter. It can do pretty much any kind of math if it's told the right Python libraries to use. So,
no, absolutely. And I think it goes back to, we've said this at Mind Over Machines even before, this huge AI wave of understanding what tasks and skills are great for machines and understanding what skills really can't be, need to be done by humans. And I think that's, a really critical exercise to do when thinking about how AI can be leveraged in an organization. It's what are the true skill sets of the humans and what are the benefits, but then also the risks and faults of an AI system where the human might need to come in and kind of fill those gaps. So I think that's a really critical exercise.
Yeah, again, going back to workforce ascension and enhancement.
Yes.
What we talk about in Mind Over Machines, our way methodology, our way framework, just being mindful of there are some things that, yes, a machine can do it, but man, it's much better if a human does it, such as writing scripts. So this is one thing I just jumping back to our Willy Wonka experience story. The actors who were brought in for this, they were handed ChatGPT generated scripts. And the actors are like, this is all gibberish. It makes no sense. Like, what the heck am I supposed to do with this? One of the things that I really appreciated, though, was seeing the statements from the actors of like, okay, but yeah, we had to push through. Like, we have these kids who are here and we want them to have a good time. And so what can we do and how can we do that? And so even when you get bad outputs from an AI system, or not great outputs, if you have an engaged workforce and you have an engaged team that want the project to be successful, they'll make it work. And that's where, that collaboration, like you were talking about earlier, is so critical, because there's going to be times when the AI doesn't meet expectations. So
Absolutely.
if you have a team that's ready to throw it under the bus and just be like, oh, well, burn it, it doesn't work, like that's not going to be good. So really focusing on that cultural transformation, so key. Bring everybody along for the ride.
It is. And I think on that note, we were chatting about this a little bit earlier, but making sure folks feel heard and that there's spaces to have conversations around AI. I think sometimes it's just like, here's the system, we will be using this. It is what it is, as opposed to how would you even feel about that? What are addressing real fears and concerns? Because I think that those are valid. And if humans don't feel like their thoughts and opinions are being heard, I think that can be challenging sometimes to get them to adopt systems that they don't trust in the first place, rather than having a conversation around when are times where it is good to trust them versus not. So I think that's an important factor of that.
Right. Absolutely. So one of the things that I think is very interesting is with the Willy Wonka experience, that people who were there, I was reading in the article, like some people went and got the police because they thought it was such a big ripoff. And, if you translate that into, if you're a IT shop or a organization bringing in these AI solutions and people are like, this is terrible, this is not going to work, man, you are stoking the flames of shadow IT, where you're losing the confidence of your team. And so what do you think, Tally, are some ways that, let's say the AI solution has been brought in, it's not meeting expectations. What do you think are some corrective actions people can do to kind of get that train back on the rails?
I think one, addressing that, not trying to deny it. I think, allowing people to say, this is not what I expected, and have the space for that. And then I think going back through from a human-centered design lens to say, what were you expecting? What is the actual problem we're trying to solve? Were you picturing this as, this amazing Willy Wonka world? And what did that look like? What were the things it could accomplish? Really understanding the jobs to be done that the user was expecting. And then I think a lot of it goes back to storytelling. I think obviously with media and the different ways that we're intaking information today, depending on where you're getting that and the type of story that you're being told is really going to frame your expectation around what a solution, or in this case, AI, actually looks like. And so I think one, before even implementing or starting that AI journey, making sure folks understand the purpose, why you're doing it, and what is the solution that we're actually, or the outcome we're actually hoping to get from that AI system, and making sure, expectations are set. I don't think a lot of times they're not these perfect machines. They might hallucinate. They might give, really wonky scripts, but then hopefully that's a place where you can, instead of having a blank canvas, use that content to then edit and make into your own. But understanding, where are the downsides of AI, and recognizing that it's not advertising it as this magical catch-all solution.
Yeah, as you were going through that, it sparked in my mind, as maybe this was the original Willy Wonka experience. Open source software, it's free, and that was the push and the promise. Like, dude, we should all be on Linux because it's free. We should all use Red Hat because it's free. And that's why we should get rid of all this Microsoft stuff. And then it's okay. We've downloaded it. It's free. Now, who can set this up? Oh, the person who costs twice as much a year to hire and pay as the Microsoft person. I'm going back. Things are different now. But, this idea of, well, it's free. It can do all this stuff and it's free. Making sure you properly manage those expectations for the life cycle, not just like you got it dropped on you. Now what? But what's the, AI systems are great. A great example of this. You've got to budget for the care and feeding of that AI system, because it's not a CRM. You can't just turn it on and it's on, and its features are static. And, so that's, as you were going through that, brought it mind.
Yeah. I think what that makes me think of too is, the what first versus the why first. So it sounds like, a lot of people think of technology first. So they hear this system, it's free, or they have access to AI now. That's the system. Where can we plug that in? As opposed to taking a step back and thinking, well, why are we trying to solve for what is it that we're actually trying to solve for? Why do we want this technology? What are going to be the benefits? And then you can see if that technology is the right fit, or maybe there's another tool, but really understanding the why behind, trying to integrate a new solution. I think sometimes we think technology first, when in actuality, we need to be thinking, business problem and human-centric design first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So Tally, let's say I'm starting my AI solution today. I do not want a Willy Wonka experience for my users. Where do I start?
Great question. There's a couple of different places. One, obviously, Mind Over Machines, we offer a free envisioning session that'll walk you through some potential use cases based on your current business objectives and AI strategy, or, even if you're just starting to think about AI, that would be a great place to start. I would also really recommend looking into, there's a couple different places for ethical AI best practices. I know Intel has a great framework. Center for Humane Technology has a talk on the AI dilemma. So just really making sure before jumping in, getting excited and just starting to use it, I think it's really important to do the educational piece first to understand how this can be misused, because if it is, there could be really heavy legal implications, or worse than that, some pretty detrimental implications around, bias of a certain group, things like that, and making sure that your data is being protected and you're not just jumping into something because the buzz is there. It's really starting with that educational foundation piece, understanding what are the possible use cases that would be beneficial versus ones that could put you at risk, and aligning them with your current business strategy. It's not just a separate solution to AI will fix everything. It needs to align with your current, business strategy. So really making sure you're understanding that piece of it as well.
Yeah, totally. So upskilling, that's so important. And I'm very glad to see Adrian on here, talk about upskilling, with apprenticeships and growing these AI skills internally. Because again, no matter what your core competency of business is today, AI is going to play a part in that going in the future. And so making sure that you're growing those AI skills to know what's reality for these systems, and to be able to have your workforce, not just your executives saying, here's where AI should fit. Man, the real supercharged organizations that we've seen, it's the workforce that comes in and says, here's where AI fits in our business. And when you get that level of engagement, you also get that level of I guess the word I'd use is tolerance for things don't quite match up, because the workforce are the ones driving it. They're in from the ground floor. They're going to see what's happening along the way. And so the expectations get aligned constantly as you're in the room doing demos, talking about what can happen, what can't happen, why, and really kind of creating that map of what's possible. And I'm thinking about one group we worked with. The executives were very, very, very excited about AI, but it was nothing compared to the frontline workers once they saw what was possible. And a lot of times people are like, oh, well, they'll get scared. They'll get worried about their jobs. Not if you're holding their hand at the beginning and saying, you're part of this. We want you engaged here. This is not just to fire you. This is to empower and uplift the workforce. And for those who hear that and say, oh, that's a very Pollyanna view of things, I will say that's the common mindset I encounter in talking to businesses, that they are looking to empower and help their employees. They're also looking to not have to hire when people leave. Very rarely is it, we want to cut this team by 10%. Help us build some AI to do that. I don't know that I've had hardly any conversations in that vein. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And so again, it's that story of AI can empower. It's not a threat or a competition, but it's hopefully something that can benefit your employee experience and take over maybe mundane tasks so the employee can focus on more creative, empathetic, problem-solving related items. So I know, Tim, I touched on at the beginning here a few use cases that came to mind for me of where I've seen AI work well, and then spaces where I think it can be a little dangerous. I'd be curious what your thoughts are on areas where you think folks can, or you've seen really great AI use cases beyond what we've discussed here today, and maybe some areas to tread lightly.
Yeah. So number one, I think this is such a powerful use case is AI for learning, like being your learning co-pilot.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a new skill you want to learn, especially, developing in Python. Yeah, we just use that because I was just talking about that. So developing in Python, there's tons of great resources out there to have tutorials to walk you through, how to build this in Python, build that. But they're very specific to that thing, where you can use tools like large language models is to say, write me a tutorial on how to learn Python to build the following type of application. Maybe it's a music library application. Chris Uline, I know you and I have talked about that. And have the system give you the steps to learn Python, but your output project be this music library. So it's actually usable and relatable for what you want to be working on. Very powerful tool. A place where I'd say also super powerful, but beware, is in document understanding. And so let's say I have, I'm a financial group, I have invoices coming in, or better yet, I'm a medical provider and I have medical claims, medical documents, a lot of which were sent via fax because it's the healthcare industry and fax is, king. But I've got these documents coming in. Well, a lot of AI tools can significantly help read those documents, process those documents, work with those documents. But there are small nuances that throw all of that off. And until you get kind of the scar tissue of like these tools and what they can do and what they can't do, and what's marketing fluff, which is versus what's like hopeful reality versus real reality, it's easy to make some poor promises of what these things can do. It's also really easy to not understand, well, that worked over here, why didn't it work over there? Small nuances. So I think that's a great use case of very useful AI, but also AI tools that really need oversight and significant expectation setting that is not going to be 100%.
No, I think that's a great example, and it makes me also think of the importance of structuring your data in an organized way to make sure that when you do train different AI systems on how to maybe extract information from documents, that they're doing so correctly based on the structured data. If you have all these different ways of structuring your data, it can be a lot more challenging to get the output that you're looking for.
Yeah. And again, who knows that structure best? The people doing the work.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Have them at the table. Don't spring AI on them. Have them as part of the process, because nobody wants AI done to them. But what I've seen is, sometimes not everybody is like, yeah, let's go, let's do this. But once they get that they are part of the process, they are engaged, we have set expectations, we have set safety, and we have set that what they say matters. there's a high level of engagement. And, things like, I mean, I've heard people say like, holy crap, I've never thought about my job like this. And I can't wait to do this more. And they're talking about invoice processing. Dude, I don't know, man. To me, that's not something I get super psyched about, but these people they see their job in a whole new way. And it is exciting to have people, revitalized with these tools.
Absolutely. I think on that point, it's interesting. I've talked with a few people who said in some ways, seeing the adoption of AI has really made them think about what makes them more human or more valuable as an employee. So it's as opposed to just, I'm here for this role, it's what is the real value I'm bringing in? What are the skill sets? It's more of a skills-based economy that can't be replaced by AI. And what are the skills that could? And then that would free me up to focus on more of the human-centric skills that, that I can provide or offer. And I think that's a really cool opportunity to just, again, think about what your value is. And I think that's an empowering stance.
Yeah. And similar to that, back to Wonka experience, there was the Scottish Oompa Loompa lady who basically became a meme. And there was a lot of negativity online to her and about her. And I recently saw where she has been doing voice stuff, like where she'll do greetings and messages for people, like as the Scottish Oompa Loompa. And so kind of owning that, like, yeah, okay, I'll lean into this. So it is interesting to kind of see how people can own, some of these challenges. Because the other thing too is like, you launch an AI tool, it doesn't meet expectations. This could be an opportunity for people to step up and say, okay, I'll lead with this and take it forward. Could also be an opportunity for people to say, I'm going to lead the rally against this. So really just managing the emotion around these tools and recognizing there is emotion. Like there's not nearly as much emotion about a new business intelligence report as there is an AI, predictive analytics system that's going to tell somebody what to do next. There's a lot of emotion in that. So
agreed. And I think on that note, the power of humor, I think, is sometimes underestimated with the Oompa Loompa example you just gave. I think, sometimes these things can go sideways and recognizing that is a possibility. So setting those expectations and then also, finding some level of humor in that, hopefully the way you've set it up, if you get a weird output, you can kind of recognize that, maybe laugh at it, take it as, what it is and adjust it accordingly, as opposed to, taking it for fact. And then, obviously having some dangerous outputs there, understanding that sometimes this, we don't always get what we're looking for. And that's part of the journey of building a AI system that gives you what you're looking for.
Yeah. And I agree with you totally on that. And I think one listener reaction could be like, oh, well, it's not going to be really funny if I get fired over this. Well, let's also be real of, hey, your AI solutions that you should start with to start building up these expectation setting muscles. It shouldn't be something that you could get fired with. Like, start small, really, really start small, take it through the pilot program. Make sure you have confidence before you take it out, into your business as a production system. Do not try to we're going to make sure our whole supply chain system is AI driven. We've never done anything else in AI before, but what could go wrong? A lot could go wrong. So don't do that. Start small, go forward from there. And maybe if the Wonka experience was only $5 to get in,
right,
maybe nobody would have cared.
Right.
So
right. No, absolutely. I think it all comes back again to expectations and like you said, start small and have fun with it. I think, we have a bi-weekly newsletter that we send out, and at the end of each one, we have a prompt of the day. And sometimes they could apply to, what you do on a day-to-day life, to affect your professional experience, but sometimes they're just fun. I know we had one that our intern came up with around, creating your own emoji, create your own emoji and expression using AI. So again, kind of playing around, having fun with it in a ethical and appropriate way, so it's the balance of educating and also experimenting and understanding, in low stakes situations. That's kind of the place to explore and play around and have fun.
Yeah. So with that said, talking about experimenting, having fun, do you we have, I'm going to pivot now, Tally, if that's okay, to talk about
Absolutely.
the most boring day. So for all those listening, we're considering, we've got a lot of great discussions that we've been having through the Boring AI show. And so what Tally and I are kicking around is the idea of, we're calling it one boring day, which would be a day of, 4, maybe 5 webinars where we would do basically presentations, discussions, open table, kind of round table things, talking about AI use cases, talking about bringing AI to your business. And so what we'd like to hear is, if we were to do such an event, what would you like to see in that event? Like, what would you like to see us talking about? Ethics is top of list. So is business case generation. We hear this all the time, like reality expectation setting, business case generation. But what else? What else would you like to see in there? So leave comments, let us know. No topic is necessarily off bounds, but please keep it business professional. And we'll go from there. Tally, anything you want to say about one boring day?
No, yeah, I think it's an exciting time to hear from Tim and I and some other voices as well, with some different backgrounds in terms of approaching AI from a technical standpoint, from a business standpoint, from a psychological standpoint. So if there's areas across any of those disciplines, or industry specific questions, things like that, please reach out. Feel free to comment on here, reach out to us via email, message on LinkedIn, whatever works. We just love hearing your feedback and hopefully giving some conversation that's actually interesting and beneficial to you guys.
Awesome. Okay. Anything else on this topic? Is there anything, at the beginning I said hey, audience people, we'd love to hear from you. And then Tally and I just rattled on. So, but, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. We want this to be an engaging conversation. Today we kind of got a little, lots of talky, just between Tally and I, but, leave your comments. We'll address them. We'll get back to you. So you want to talk about wins, Tally?
Let's do it. Let's delve in.
All right. I will start if that's okay.
Please
My
do.
win is for all the geeks on with us here. I am super excited. My daughter has graduated from anime to comic books. And so I consider this a significant win, because I was a comic book nerd as a kid. And so she has gotten really into Spider-Man, specifically Spider-Punk, and just really into all these, whether it's comic books or graphic novels. And, as an artist, the art is really calling out to her. So my win this week is, getting into this all new, passion of hers, which is super fun.
That's awesome. I was just going to ask, because I know she is an artist. Has she played around with, kind of creating some cartoons or comics of her own?
So no, because she is very much, and I'm going to say this way, and this is not a knock on comic book artists because they are phenomenal, but she's very into fine art and does a lot with lettering and marker and paint, and she is all over the place creatively. But where I think tools like Lore Machine, she loves writing as well. So tools like Lore Machine, for those who haven't seen this thing, it is amazing. I could see her totally being into that. Lore Machine is a tool where you can load in a story and it creates consistent AI-generated images and backgrounds, which when we say AI-generated images and consistent characters, that's a big deal. Like that's like the holy grail of AI art and animation. So she's not there yet, but I have a feeling it's coming soon.
Very cool.
How about you, Tally? What's your win?
So mine was, again, I went to this AI facilitation workshop and it was really interesting. And there were a few folks there from the healthcare space. And we were just talking about some advances in AI and its impact in healthcare. And I was reading this article this week around new hope for early pancreatic cancer intervention via AI-based risk prediction. And for those who don't know, I mean, pancreatic cancer is a very deadly disease, and it's one of the best ways to get around it is early detection. But because the organ is so deep in the abdomen, it's hard to detect. I actually had a friend who spent her whole graduate program studying this, and it's a really challenging space. And so to see that there was benefit and use for AI here was really, really great to see. I know that they said that their model, it stands out for their development and validation on an extensive database of over 5 million patients, surpassing the scale of most prior research. So just the fact that it can, intake that large amount of data can hopefully lead towards, some just better ways to predict and catch the potential for pancreatic cancer earlier is really exciting. So that was really interesting to me.
That is amazing. And it's just, when you think about large language models and open source and transformers as an AI technology, it is just opening up a whole new capability, which is so fascinating. I honestly don't think we've seen anything yet.
No, it really is. I mean, the stat here was, so the team's comparison showed that while standard screening criteria identified about 10% of PDAC, the pancreatic cancer cases, using a 5 times higher relative risk threshold, their algorithm can actually detect 35% of cases at that same threshold. So that's a huge difference. So just the lives being saved there, it's to me, that's what an incredible impact that could have. Again, just continuing to see these really exciting use cases that can literally save lives is I just think that's really inspiring. And I hope to see more of this as the AI wave continues. Yeah.
Wow. And just as you're sharing these stats, I'm thinking about, large language, when Stable Diffusion came out, diffusion models were all the rage of oh my gosh, you can generate these images out of very little and it's super cool. And then large language models with transformers came out and it's whoa, look what this can do. And now, as we see with tools like Sora and JPV, the new Meta one, I know Nick is going to correct me after this call, but the video understanding, you're getting into world models and helping AI understand the operational capabilities of the world. When we start when we have the transformer breakthrough for world models that we had for large language models, I think we're going to be in a whole nother level with AI. It's a super exciting time to be in this world. And we hope everybody here is getting value from our discussions and really learning and following us with this AI journey. And if there's something you'd like us to talk about, let us know. So
absolutely. Awesome.
Anything else for today, Tally?
No, I think that's it. And I hope that people continue to stay optimistic around, just the potential and doing so in an appropriate way. And again, happy to chat, if anybody wants to go into this further on how to best implement this and set up expectations within your organization. Tim and I are always happy to chat, as you can see.
Often ad nauseum. But absolutely. What's the next Boring AI show?
Yeah, the next Boring AI show we have is, pull it up here for the title. The next boring AI show that we have is on the topic of AI in higher education. So our guest, Dr. Bailey, will actually be joining us and talking about the ways that not only AI is being integrated to higher education, but how is this preparing the new workforce? So as we think about, as organizations hire folks just out of college, what are they learning now from an AI perspective, and how could that impact your organization? So I think that'll be a really fun discussion.
Yeah, Dr. Emily Bailey is awesome. Her and I have talked a lot about how Towson University in Maryland here is approaching AI, both academically and from an area of study. And so, and shout out, religious studies undergrad like me. So we flock together. But that's going to be a really interesting show. We're going to be talking about learning. We're talking about AI's role in learning. Expect, and I know from my discussions with Emily, expect some hot takes. So it'll be interesting. So
I'm excited. Very cool.
Awesome. Well, everybody, don't forget to check out the Boring AI Show landing page, which has all of our past shows on it. Thank you to Nick, who always records and keeps all that track and data going. We really appreciate it. And all the links that we've talked about will be shared below, or in the comments. So make sure, come on back, get those comments when they get posted. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
All right. See y'all.